Sometimes we hesitate before a story, not because it is loud, but because it is quiet in a way that leaves marks. This one began in a room meant for sunlight, with a conversation that sounded practiced, almost gentle, until it wasn't. Hannah Brooks was an emergency room nurse, and what happened to her mattered because it did not arrive as chaos. It arrived as a plan. This is where she takes over. The glass table was already wiped clean when I sat down. No fingerprints, no water rings, nothing that looked like a family meal had ever happened there. My mother liked it that way. Order first, meaning later. Patricia slid a thin folder toward me, slow enough that it felt intentional. She didn't look at my stomach when she did it. She looked at the table, like she was lining something up in her head. "You're far enough along now," she said. "We need to talk about timing." I rested my hand on my belly without thinking. 31 weeks had changed my balance, my sleep, the way I stood up from chairs. It hadn't changed my hearing. "Talk about what?" I asked. She opened the folder and turned it so it faced me. The top page was labeled Relinquishment of Parental Rights. The words were neat, official, the kind of font lawyers used when they wanted something to feel inevitable. "This isn't emotional," Patricia said, "so let's not make it emotional." I let out a breath through my nose. "You called me here on a Tuesday morning. That was when your sister could get off work." As if summoned. Olivia shifted in her seat beside her. She didn't meet my eyes. Her nails were pale pink. "Freshly done," Patricia continued. "Olivia cannot carry a pregnancy. We've been over that. The trust has conditions. Family continuity matters to your grandfather's estate. My grandfather is dead," I said, "and his paperwork isn't." She tapped the page. "If Olivia becomes a legal parent before the next review, a tranche of the trust is released. $600,000. That stabilizes everything. Everything." I repeated. "Your father made some decisions." She said, "This fixes them." Olivia finally spoke. "It's not like we're taking something from you." I turned to her. "I'm carrying my child." Patricia's mouth tightened. "You're carrying a solution. There's a difference." The room went still. I could hear the low hum of the heating vent under the windows. "You give birth," Patricia said. "You sign the papers. Olivia adopts, quietly, cleanly. You receive $250,000 for your trouble and you go back to your life. My life." I said, "Yes, your shifts, your apartment. This doesn't have to change anything for you." I felt my pulse in my throat. I kept my voice level. "No." Patricia looked at me the way people look at a calculator when the numbers do not add up. "Think carefully," she said. "This is practical. It's not happening." She exhaled, sharp and controlled. "You're being difficult. I'm being a mother." That was the moment her patience slipped, not into anger, into irritation. From the channel's side, there was nothing dramatic about it. Just the smallest shift in posture, the signal that a boundary had been reclassified. Patricia stood. "You always do this," she said. "You make things harder than they need to be." I pushed my chair back. "I'm leaving." Her hand caught my arm, not hard at first, just enough to stop me. "Don't be selfish," she said. I stepped back to pull free, my heel brushing the edge of the rug. The staircase was closer than I remembered. I remember thinking, very clearly, that she was not shouting. Then she shoved me. The air went out of my lungs as the world tilted. I folded inward on instinct, arms tight around my stomach, my shoulder taking the first impact. Pain cracked across my side, hot and blinding. At the bottom, I lay still, not because I was afraid to move, because I was counting. When I reached into my bag with shaking fingers, the Doppler was right where I left it. I pressed it to my skin and listened. Fast. Too fast. I didn't look back up at the stairs. I pulled out my phone and called the only number that mattered. "I need an ambulance," I said. "Now. If you're listening to this story and it's hitting close, stay with it. Sometimes the quiet decisions are the ones that change everything. The siren cut out a block before the house, like the driver didn't want to announce himself. Red light washed over the front windows. I stayed where I was, on the cold tile, my back against the wall, counting my breaths the way I'd taught patients to do. Patricia hovered at the top of the stairs, not rushing, not crying, just watching. "This is unnecessary," she said. "You slipped." I pressed my palm harder into my side. The pain sharpened. "Don't touch me." She lifted her hands, offended by the suggestion. "I'm trying to help." Footsteps came fast behind me. The front door opened. A man knelt close enough that I could smell coffee on his breath. "Can you tell me your name?" he asked. "Hannah Brooks." My voice shook once, then settled. "I'm pregnant. 31 weeks. Another voice. Female this time. Firm and calm. "Any bleeding?" "No." "Abdominal pain?" "Not yet." They slid a board under me as they strapped me in. Patricia leaned over the railing. "Call me," she said. "We'll sort this out." I looked straight ahead. The ceiling blurred as they lifted me. Outside, the air was sharp. The paramedic clipped the monitor to my finger. Numbers climbed, then steadied. "You did the right thing," she said, low. "We're taking you straight to labor and delivery." Inside the ambulance, the Doppler came back out. The sound filled the space, fast and uneven. The medic's mouth tightened just a bit. "We're moving," she said to the driver. My phone buzzed. Mark's name lit up the screen. I didn't answer. Another buzz, then another. A text came through. "Your mother is beside herself. Please don't make this worse." I closed my eyes. The straps pressed into my shoulders. The siren came back on. Louder this time. At the hospital entrance, doors flew open. Hands guided me through bright hallways. A nurse leaned close. "We've got you," she said. "Stay with me." I nodded. I stayed quiet. Saying no once had been enough. They wheeled me into a room with softer lights than the emergency bay. No sirens, no shouting. Just a steady hum and the squeak of the bed as they locked the wheels. A nurse with dark hair pulled back tight pressed a button and lowered the side rail. "Labor and delivery," she said, like it was a promise. "We're going to keep you here for observation." She wrapped 2 wide belts around my stomach, snug but careful. One found the baby's heartbeat, the other tracked contractions. The sound filled the room again, fast and uneven, like it was trying to catch up with itself. Her eyes flicked to the screen, not panic. "Focus. Any dizziness?" she asked. "My side hurts. Breathing's shallow." She nodded and reached for the blood pressure cuff. "That tracks." Another nurse came in with a clipboard. Older, calm voice. "You fell downstairs." "Yes." "Someone push you?" I didn't answer right away. My mouth felt dry. The younger nurse glanced at me, then back at the screen. "It's okay," the older one said. "Just answer what you can." "Yes," I said. The word landed heavier than I expected. She wrote it down without comment. "We're going to monitor you for at least 24 hours. Any abdominal trauma after 20 weeks. We don't rush." "Good," I said. It came out sharper than I meant. A resident stepped in, introduced himself with a quick smile, then moved straight to business. He pressed along my ribs, slow, methodical. I sucked in a breath and hissed. "Rib fractures," he said. "Likely more than one. Lungs sound okay, but we'll get imaging." He paused. "Baby's heart rate is elevated. Not dangerous yet, but we're watching. Please do," I said. They drew blood, started fluids. Someone placed a warm blanket over my legs. It smelled like detergent and plastic. My phone buzzed again. Mark, then Patricia, then Olivia. I turned the screen face down. The door opened once more. A woman in scrubs I didn't recognize stepped in. voice gentle but direct. "I'm the social worker on call. I just need to ask you a few questions." I stared at the ceiling tiles, counted the small cracks between them. "I don't want my family here," I said. She nodded like she'd expected that. "We can note that." "Good." The baby kicked then, hard enough that I felt it through the belts. The monitor spiked, then settled. The nurse smiled despite herself. "That's a strong one." I swallowed. My chest ached with every breath. Outside the room, I heard footsteps, then voices that faded before they reached the door. Inside, the sound that mattered stayed steady. Night settled in without anyone announcing it. The window showed a darker version of the same parking lot, lights reflecting off wet pavement. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried and then stopped. The belts stayed on. The monitor kept printing thin lines of proof. Every few minutes, someone glanced at the screen, adjusted something, nodded. A respiratory therapist came in to check my lungs. He listened longer on the left side, asked me to take a slow breath, then another. "That hurts." I told him. "I know," he said quietly. "You're doing fine." An X-ray tech followed, careful with the angles, apologizing each time I had to shift. I bit down and didn't answer. Pain was familiar. The waiting was worse. Later, the older nurse returned with a tablet. She pulled up a chair instead of standing over me. "I need to document a few things," she said. "This is routine." I watched the cursor blink. "Did the fall happen inside your home?" "Yes." "Were you alone?" "No." Her fingers paused. "Was the person who pushed you a family member?" "Yes." She didn't react, just typed. The sound of it felt louder than it should have. A doctor I hadn't met yet stepped in after that. She wore a badge clipped crooked, hair escaping her bun. "We're keeping you overnight," she said. "Actually, at least 24 hours. Your scans show rib fractures and a pulmonary contusion. Baby's heart rate is improving, but we're not taking chances." "Thank you." She met my eyes. "We've notified the on-call social worker and security. Your family will not be allowed back here without your consent." Relief came sharp and unexpected. I let my head sink into the pillow. The social worker returned near midnight. She closed the door gently behind her. "I know you already spoke to someone," she said. "This is just follow-up." She asked about my husband, where he was, if he knew. "He's on his way," I told her. "From work." She nodded. "Good." She slid a form onto the tray table. "Given what you've told us, we can help you request a temporary order of protection. It doesn't mean you're pressing charges tonight. It just creates space." Space sounded good. "I want that," I said. She smiled, small and steady. "Okay." My phone buzzed again. I didn't look. The screen lit the ceiling for a second, then went dark. When Evan finally came in, his face went tight the moment he saw the belts and the IV. "Oh," he said. That was all. He took my hand carefully. Didn't ask questions. Didn't look at the door. The monitor kept printing. The baby shifted again. Slower this time. A nurse adjusted the volume down a notch. "There," she said. "Let's let you rest." I closed my eyes. The room stayed quiet. The paper kept moving. Morning came in pieces. A blood pressure cuff tightening. A nurse swapping out a bag of fluids. Evan asleep in the chair with his jacket folded under his head. The monitor sounded steadier now. Not perfect. Better. A nurse I hadn't met before checked my chart and smiled like she meant it. "Baby's looking calmer this morning." "Good." She adjusted one of the belts, then paused. "You've got a lot of missed calls." "I know." She didn't press. Just nodded and moved on. When Evan woke up, he blinked at the screen on my phone like it might bite him. "They keep trying." "I'm not answering." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Your dad left a voicemail at 4 a.m. I'm sure it was heartfelt." He didn't laugh. He played it anyway. Mark's voice filled the room, tight and rushed. Your mother hasn't slept. She's beside herself. This was an accident. Hannah, you tripped. Everyone knows that. Please don't make this worse than it already is. Evan stopped it halfway through. That's not okay. No, I agreed. It's familiar. Another text came in while we sat there. We can cover the hospital bills. Just come home and we'll talk. I turned the screen toward Evan. They're already rewriting it. He exhaled slowly. Do you want me to respond? No. The social worker stopped by again before lunch. She pulled the curtain, sat on the edge of the chair. We filed the order of protection. She said, temporary. It's active as of this morning. Thank you. She looked at my phone. Still face down. If they escalate. Document everything. Don't engage. I won't. After she left, Evan leaned closer. They sound scared. They're not. I said, they're organized. He watched my face for a second. What are you thinking? That silence buys time. For what? I stared at the slow, steady line on the monitor. For them to get careless. The baby shifted. Not a kick this time. Just a roll. I breathed through the ache in my ribs and let my phone buzz itself quiet. Outside the window, cars moved like nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. Discharge took longer than I expected. Not because anyone dragged their feet, but because there were forms stacked on forms. Each one needed a signature, a date, a pause to make sure I understood what it meant. A nurse walked me through the last page. You're cleared to go home, she said. No lifting, no driving. Follow up in labor and delivery in 2 days. I know. She lowered her voice. Security has your mother and sister flagged. They won't get past the desk. Thank you. Evan helped me into my coat. He moved like everything I touched might break. At the elevator, he asked if I wanted to stop for coffee on the way out. Not today. At home, the quiet felt thicker than it should have. Evan set my bag down and hovered, unsure where to land. I'm going to make some calls. I told him, then I'm going to rest. He nodded. I'll be right here. I started with Jonathan Reed. His assistant answered, professional and calm. He's expecting your email, she said. You can send it to the secure address. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. The screen felt too bright. I attached the discharge summary, the imaging report, the order of protection, then the files I'd kept to myself for months. Statements, transfers, dates that didn't line up. When Reed called back, he didn't waste time. I reviewed what you sent. Okay, there are irregularities, he said. Enough that I need to act carefully. I understand. You should know, he added. As trustee, I have obligations. Once this moves forward, it won't be private. I'm not asking for private. A pause. Your parents reached out this morning. Did you respond? No. I closed my laptop and leaned back. My ribs protested. I waited for it to pass. I'm willing to meet, I said, on record. Here, he replied. With a legal assistant present, that's what I want. After we hung up, I picked up my phone. Mark had left 3 more messages. Patricia had sent one text. You're making a mistake. I typed slowly, careful with each word. I don't want to fight anymore. I'm willing to talk. Jonathan Reed's office. Please bring the papers. The dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared. Then a response came through. We'll be there. Evan watched my face. That was fast. They think I'm tired, I said. They think I'm scared. He pulled a chair closer. Are you? I rested my hand on my stomach. The baby shifted, steady and sure. Enough to be careful. I turned the phone face down and stood. Slow and deliberate. For now, I said. We wait. The house stayed quiet. The work was already done. Jonathan Reed's office smelled faintly of old paper and lemon cleaner. The conference room was smaller than I expected. No skyline, no glass walls. just wood paneling and a long table that had seen a lot of quiet endings. I arrived early. A legal assistant was already there, setting a yellow pad at the far end of the table. She nodded once and went back to arranging pens so they lined up. When my parents walked in, Patricia took the seat across from me without hesitation. Mark hovered for a second before sitting beside her. Olivia stayed standing until Patricia flicked her fingers. Then she folded into the chair like she'd been told. Patricia smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "You look tired." "I am." "That's understandable," she said. "This has all been very stressful." Jonathan Reed cleared his throat. "Before we begin, I want to be clear. This meeting is being witnessed and documented." Patricia waved a hand. "Of course. We have nothing to hide." She slid the folder toward me. The same one from the sunroom. The corners were sharper now. "This is the cleanest way," she said. "Sign today, and we all move forward." I opened it but didn't touch the pen. "You've updated the language." "We had to," Patricia replied. "Given your episode." Mark shifted in his chair. His knee bounced once, then again. "The adoption timeline is aggressive." I said. "Why the rush?" Patricia's smile thinned. "Because uncertainty isn't good for families." Jonathan leaned back slightly. "The trust review isn't scheduled for several weeks." Patricia turned to him. "We're aware." I let the silence stretch. Then I slid a separate stack of papers onto the table. Bank statements, loan summaries, dates circled in pen. Mark's knee stopped bouncing. "These withdrawals," I said, tapping the top page, "didn't go through the proper approval process." Mark's face went pale. "That's not what this meeting is about. Then why are the amounts structured to avoid internal alerts?" Patricia cut in. "You're overstepping." Jonathan looked at Mark. "Are these accurate?" Mark opened his mouth, closed it, then spoke too fast. "They were temporary. I was going to replace the funds before the audit." Olivia's head snapped up. "What audit?" Patricia shot her a look. "Enough." I kept my voice steady. "You borrowed from restricted accounts. You took loans against future distributions that weren't yours." Mark rubbed his forehead. "It was supposed to be short-term." Jonathan set his pen down. "I need you to stop talking." Patricia leaned forward. Her perfume drifted across the table. "Let's not get distracted. Hannah, this is about what's best for everyone. It's about control," I said. Her eyes hardened. "Be careful." She lowered her voice. "Next time, it won't be stairs. It will be paperwork." The legal assistant looked up. Jonathan didn't move. "Is that a threat?" he asked. Patricia sat back. "It's reality." Mark pushed his chair away from the table. "We should go." Jonathan stood. "This meeting is over." Patricia stared at me, expression empty now. "You're making a mistake." I closed the folder and slid it back. "I'm done being something you can trade." No one spoke as they left. The door closed softly behind them. Jonathan exhaled. "I'll be filing reports today." I nodded. My ribs ached. The baby rolled, slow and solid, like a reminder that the room was still mine to leave. The knock came just after dark. Not loud, precise. The kind that didn't need repeating. Evan was already on his feet. He checked the hallway camera and went still. Police. I eased myself up from the couch, one hand braced at my side. The door opened to 3 officers on the porch, lights washing the living room in blue and red. "We got a report," the one in front said. His voice stayed neutral. "Concern for your safety." "I know why you're here," I answered. "Come in." They stepped inside, eyes moving over the room. The couch, the kitchen table. Evan standing close but not crowding me. "Are you feeling suicidal tonight?" the officer asked. "No." "Any thoughts of harming yourself or your unborn child?" "No." I reached for the folder on the console and handed it over. "Here's the case number and the temporary order of protection, issued this morning." He took the papers, read quickly, then handed them to his partner. The second officer nodded once. Who made the call? Evan asked. The officer didn't answer directly. A relative. I was warned this might happen. I said, "It's retaliation." The front officer's jaw tightened. That tracks. He stepped aside and spoke quietly into his radio. The lights outside dimmed a notch. The tension in the room shifted. Small but noticeable. "Everything looks in order here," he said when he turned back. "We'll note the false report." "Thank you." As they left, the last officer paused. "You did the right thing calling this in ahead of time." The door closed. The house settled. Evan locked up and leaned his forehead against the door for a second. "They tried to scare you." "They tried to get control back. My phone buzzed once on the table. A message from a number I didn't have saved." "You didn't have to do this." I turned the screen face down. "They're done." Evan sat beside me, careful of my ribs. Outside, the street went quiet again. Inside, the baby shifted, steady and unbothered. I let the silence hold. The nursery light stays on low at night, just enough to see the edges of things. The crib, the chair, the small stack of folded blankets on the dresser that I keep refolding even though no one's touched them. 6 months passed without any one moment marking the shift. No courtroom scenes, no raised voices, just envelopes arriving, calls being returned, then fewer calls, then none. Mark pled out, financial crimes. Quietly. Patricia lost her position over the trust and any influence she thought she still had. Olivia's name disappeared from the paperwork altogether. No one told me directly. I heard it from Jonathan Reed, in a tone that suggested this was simply how things concluded. The trust was restructured. I received nothing. That part didn't sting the way I once imagined it would. Not because I didn't care, but because the caring had already burned out by then. Evan asked one evening while we were washing bottles at the sink. He kept his eyes on the water. "Do you ever think about it?" he said. "The money." I set the bottle rack down and dried my hands. "I think about the cost." He nodded like that made sense. Our daughter slept through most nights now. When she wakes, it's usually quiet, just a sound, a reminder. I rock her in the chair by the window, careful of my ribs that still ache when the weather changes. She smells like soap and warmth and something I can't name yet, something that doesn't need words. I think about that room in Naperville sometimes. The glass table, the folder, how calm my mother looked when she called my child a solution. What stays with me isn't the fall, it's the moment after. When I realized she was watching to see if the problem had been fixed, that was the line. Not the stairs, not the paperwork. That look. I learned something about myself there, about how long I'd spent adjusting my shape to fit spaces that were never meant to hold me, about how easy it was for them to assign a price to me because I kept accepting it. Hannah Brooks doesn't do that anymore. I don't take calls I don't want. I don't explain myself to people who already decided. I don't keep my voice soft to make others comfortable. When Evan asks how I'm doing, I tell him the truth. When I'm tired, I rest. When I'm scared, I move slower instead of smaller. The nursery light clicks off. The room goes dark. My daughter breathes against my shoulder. Steady and sure. Peace wasn't free. It cost me everything they thought I owed them, and it gave me back myself. We'll leave this one here. Some stories don't ask for applause. If you stayed with Hannah to the end, that's enough.